Hey, what's happening, guys? Dan Dyro here with another Options and Play video update. So, before things get fired up, kind of pumping the brakes. uh, what I mean by that is expectations matter, right? Before we get into the busier stretch this week, because Monday, as is the case with most Mondays, Monday's been kind of quiet. But tomorrow, like tonight, tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, it's really going to pick up. Got a ton of names that are going to move, um, but expectations matter, right? Expectations always matter when it comes to these types of trades, when it comes to earnings. But even more so, it seems that this quarter, expectations are playing a much greater role in the performance of stocks after they report. And um, it can change a lot from one quarter to the next. Sometimes it matters less. Sometimes it matters more. And right now it seems like we're more in like the latter camp where it makes more it makes a bigger difference how the stock has performed into earnings, maybe like the month before, 2 months before, maybe the 4 to 5 months before. And so Twilio is what I'm going to talk about, but to give some reference here, just think about the Fang names, right? And think about we'll go through like the 4 or 5 Fang names that reported this quarter, right? Um, what's one of the ones that's probably been the best performer year to date? Netflix, right? What happens to Netflix? It beat. Let's go to this. So they beat. Um, guidance was okay. What happened? The stock was down, right? What's the second best Fang performer? Probably Microsoft, right? What happened with Microsoft? Decent report. What happened? Stock traded down, right? What probably the worst performer of the group, right? It doesn't take a rocket science to figure this one. Apple. What happened? The number was mixed. The guidance was bad, and what happened to stock? It rallied, right? Facebook. Actually, a really strong report, right? But the stock had really been underperforming, and what happened to that? That thing was up a ton. So it's all about expectations, right? It's like when expectations are low, or at least this quarter, we're not going to extrapolate this for the whole year, but right now it's like when expectations are low, it's easier to get the bigger boosts in the stock. When expectations are high, a la the Netflixes and the Microsofts and maybe the Googles, right? Like Google, expectations were higher after Facebook, um, right? Facebook has a good number. Google starts to run, starts to break out. Expectations get elevated, and what happens? The stock underperforms. So it's all about where the expectations lie going into earnings. And circling back to Twilio, again, you don't need to be a master chart technician to figure out that expectations are ridiculously high. The stock over a 1 year stretch, right? January last year is $25. Right now it's at 115. So it's up what 400%, give or take. So something in that realm. 400% over the last year. Coming off beat and raise, bigger beat and raise, blowout, and then a blowout report. So the stock is basically at all-time high. It's up 350 to 400% year to date. Coming off blowout report, and the options are pricing in a huge move. They're pricing in 16 points. So they're basically pricing in like 13 to 14%. So, following like the playbook, like there are some names that I go after that are near their 52-week highs, right? I mean, like I like NOW was one, right? I liked NOW, but it was also a different setup, right? I mean, the stock was not right at its 52-week high, but it also been in like kind of like a sideways consolidation. It was pushing up into resistance. There was a really well-defined level, right? So there are setups with stocks at their highs which are better than others. Twilio is just pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing nonstop. New highs, new highs, new highs. Blowout report, blowout report. So everybody's expecting a blowout report. Everybody's expecting another leg higher, and the options are expensive, right? I mean, yes, it had a really big move last quarter, right? Had about a 22 point move last quarter. So that was big. But you can see at the time, Twilio was off about 15% from its high, right? Like that was back into like the teeth of the selling in October, November, and Twilio had a sharp reversal off its high. But now it's 3 months later, it's a completely different story. The stock is at all-time high, just running and running and running, and expectations are very high. So that's why, as much as like I think it could be a mover this week, and as much as it's a name that like one of like the more interesting names of the week, it's just, is there a trade here? And I don't have confidence in a trade. Coming into the week, I was thinking a calendar spread, but even then, to make the calendar spread fall in line with the risk, it would have to be so far out of the money. So you're looking at maybe like 135, 140, some level far enough out of the money to kind of get it in line with the risk that I tend to take into these types of trades. So it's like that even then, I mean, that's a 20-point move, and it's one of those scenarios where it's like as much as I think it has potential, and as much as I like the name, the way it acts, it's just, is there a trade for earnings? And right now I'm just thinking I can't find one, right? And that's really how you have to go through these setups, right? Like not every setup is created equal. I mean, Twilio last quarter was a lot different than Twilio this quarter, and one software stock may not be the same as another software stock, even though they were right at 52-week highs, right? So like NOW was 5% off its, well, maybe not 5%, but it wasn't that far off its 52-week high, but it was a completely different setup versus Twilio, which is right at its 52-week high, and it's just kind of just running and running and running and running. So I don't want to discourage you. If it's a name you guys like, then that's that's something that you've come to the conclusion on your own. That's something a risk that you want to take, and that's something that you've determined on your own that's something you want to do. But for me, somebody that doesn't have a position in it right now, I just don't see reason for me to get involved ahead of earnings. After earnings, depending on how it looks, then that's a different story, right? Especially if the options come back down, maybe if the stock pulls back a little bit, or maybe if it doesn't have a huge move and the options start to come back down to earth, and then maybe there's some potential. But going into earnings, to me, I think it's an avoid. All right. Love to hear what your guys think about it, right? Twilio seems like it's one of those names. It's not a FANG name, but it definitely gets a lot of eyeballs. So I'm sure you guys have an opinion, and I'd love to hear what you think of it. So definitely reach out. I hope you guys have a great night. Best of luck if you're playing anything. Looking for the ranges to open up a little bit. Today was kind of a quiet day, but again, tomorrow morning you start to see earnings pick up, and then tomorrow night, Wednesday, Thursday, I'll be busy. So as the numbers start to come out, I'm expecting the overall action just to pick up a bit more. So lots to look forward to this week. So again, have a great night, and I'll talk to you guys all tomorrow.